guys. Is my audio good, Druid? Morrow Dim, thank you so much. You got your dancing butterick, lady. I owe Jill one from the other day because she subbed during something. I can't remember. Something I didn't have the dancing lady for. So happy Monday, you guys. I know. I love the dancing lady so much. I need to find more of those. I think there might be another one. I want to say it's more of like a 70s. She's wearing like a jumpsuit. So anyway, happy Monday. So good to see you guys. Druid, my dear. We had a great conversation last night about Little Debbie's. My mom sent me a thing that it was about the history of Little Debbie's. Some guy made a clip. I think it was probably on YouTube or Facebook. And I forwarded it to Druid because they were talking about, the guy was talking about how it was an Appalachian man who created Little Debbie's, the snack cake, and they were the first in many things. They were the first to be individually packaged. They were the first to be shipped in or sold in like multi-packs. Interesting stuff. Yes. And my son calls the bigger ones, you know, they have the regular size and they have the big ones. My son calls the big ones Large Deborahs. Little Debbie's are like, I don't know. Do they have Little Debbie's across the country? I don't know. Marodem, I think you're in Texas. I don't know. Little Debbie's, I think, are nationwide. We have some other stuff here on the East Coast and in the Mid-Atlantic that are, I think, kind of regional. But, yeah, Little Debbie's. It's like a rite of childhood to have those little snack cakes in your lunch. Oh my gosh, a Little Debbie Barbie. I remember that. I remember when that came out. I remember thinking, oh, how cute. I've never been like a Barbie collector or anything. I had a boy. So we didn't have any Barbies in our house. But so you guys, if it looks like I got about 3 hours of sleep and just skidded in here about 15 minutes ago, you would be correct. It was a fun weekend. It was an action-packed weekend. I didn't sleep well. Too many different mattresses. I had 2 days downtown Richmond and one night at my father-in-law's house. And I'm not a great traveler. I fully admit that. Oh, yes, the Little Debbie Barbie, if I remember correctly, like she had the gingham dress and like maybe an apron or something, but then the little hat, right? The little straw hat, like that Little Debbie wore. Such cute stuff they do with the Barbies. So, as you know, from last Thursday, I went to the Richmond Folk Festival in Richmond, Virginia. This was their 20th anniversary. I, for some reason, had thought they had been around a little bit longer than that, but it's only been 20 years. I moved from Richmond. I went to school there, and it's kind of, it's not my hometown, but I kind of always have considered it my hometown. I left there in 1996 and my husband and I were talking and we're like, oh my God, it's been so many years that we moved away and so many things have changed down there. And it was like 8 years we'd been gone when this folk festival started, but it's such a big thing down there that they're celebrating their 20th anniversary. So I was like, wow, that makes me feel really old. It was really fun. And my intention, and you know what they say about good intentions. My intention was to make like a little presentation for you guys to show off my pictures and my video clips and things. That did not come to pass as I had planned. But I will have that for Thursday. I've got lots of cool stuff to show you. And I'll give you a little bit of a sneak peek. But I think that we're gonna jump into Lady of Godey's today because I'm tired. And I want some Sarah Josepha Hale. But first, this is the t-shirt. I can't quite see it. I usually don't buy the t-shirt because some years it's not cute. But this year I thought it was kind of cute. He's got, so obviously this is a little musician guy guitar. He's got the dogwood and the cardinal, which are Virginia's flower and bird. I don't remember what Virginia's butterfly is, but I'm pretty sure that is what this represents. And perhaps Virginia has a lizard because there's a little lizard on top of his guitar. So anyway, I thought it was cute this year, so I bought this one. And then, of course, it's got all the acts that were on the back of it. So I think, as I said, it's down on these kind of two connected islands that are in the James River, and between the shore and these two islands is really just a canal. And then, there's the river. A lot of stuff happening. You know what, Druid? Yes, t-shirts are expensive, and that's one of the reasons why I often don't buy t-shirts at like festivals and things. These were only $20. And I was like, oh, nice for my wallet, but also, I hate to get into the whole fast fashion thing, but I can't buy a meal at a fast food restaurant for under $20 practically. This was $20. So, anyway, but this is good memories. So, but yeah, I know sometimes t-shirts at festivals and things, like I've seen them for $30 and $40. That's a lot for a short sleeve t-shirt, like a big beefy sweatshirt kind of thing. I could see, spending more than that. But anyway, so the festival happens on these two islands, and there's a lot going on down there. There's a railroad bridge that goes across. And I think it's a busy railroad track. It's, Richmond is kind of right there in the middle. Amtrak and the north-south train tracks. I can't remember what the line is called, but it's one of the busy ones. And I've never been to a festival down there where in the evening, nighttime, there wasn't a train going by. And the engineer will blow the horn because, people down on the island just go mad about it. They go crazy. And it's funny because it always kind of irritates me because it'll inevitably be right in the middle of, a song that an artist is playing. And I'm like, I was kind of listening to that when this train went by, but the people of Richmond love it. So anyway, yeah, we saw at least 3 trains. But this year was a little bit crazy because there's a lot going on down there. They have, as one of the big companies that's down there in Richmond, a big multinational real estate conglomerate thing, they're building this really tall building. It's going to be the tallest building in Virginia, which is shocking to me. And of course, they're building it right there in at this spot, right? Yes, I will get to the weather in a minute. I honestly feel so bad for the people. I almost feel bad, even complaining about the weather because, my God, the people in Asheville, I have friends in Atlanta, not good, and particularly Asheville, they're not used to this. The coastal towns are kind of used to this, and yeah. No longer I-40 and I-26. Oh my God. Yeah, so I guess those are those east? Yeah, those would be east-west because they're even numbers. But anyway, there's all this construction going on. Of course, the weather was the situation. But anyway, this thing is spread out. And this year, because of the construction, there's also a Federal Reserve Bank right there. There's a lot of things down there that kind of over the years have started to encroach on the festival stuff. The festivals have been going on down there for as long as I've been alive, I think. I want to say my first festival I went to down there was probably in the early 90s when I was in college. Anyway, this year it's really stretched out. And if you can imagine a city running through, or a river kind of running through a city, you've got very steep roads that go down towards the river, and walking up and down those is often rough. And this year, we went down there knowing that there's probably going to be bad weather. We were kind of uncertain whether the festival was even going to be happening, with the weather. Although we've been to this festival when it's been pouring, because it happens prime hurricane season. But anyway, the hurricane, of course, as you all know, the hurricane took a different track, and it spared most of the coastal areas and kind of central areas of the East Coast, where we usually do get a lot of weather. And so, of course, it was doing a lot of damage and destruction. But here like on the East Coast, it was horrible and rainy on Friday. Blazing hot, like hole in the ozone opened on Saturday. It was probably 100% humidity, but blazing hot, sunny, like baking sun overhead. And of course, like all the steam is coming up off the ground. So Saturday was kind of a miserable day down there. And then Sunday was fairly nice, still really hot. And then today the rain is back. So yeah, it's rough. For me, it was just an imposition. But yeah, again, my heart goes out. And if you guys, I know, Druid, you're kind of right down there at the end, I guess, of the passage of destruction. But, if you have any friends or family in Atlanta, North Carolina, I know those are two of the really bad areas that I just know people. So I don't know what other cities, there along the track. I mean, surely there's got to be some places in South Carolina that were equally affected. I just have not seen it on the news. But anyway, yeah, heart going out to our friends and family there. I heard on the radio they've been promised like pronto federal aid. FEMA's got their hands full. But I hope that, people get back on their feet, get their electricity back, get the floodwaters out of their basement, get, all the stuff. So yeah, Knoxville was lucky. Yeah, honestly, I mean, I feel Baltimore, I think probably while we were gone, we got rain. Like I said, Richmond, it just was a horrible rainy drive down there. And then, no rain. And everyone was surprised by that because that's usually not what happens. Anyway, so long story short, it was a fun weekend, but of course it had that kind of tinge of, 24 inches of rain. Yeah. We've experienced that here. We're so close to the coast, because Maryland is a small state. So, we're right up against the Chesapeake, and we get the storm surge that comes in. But yeah, those places inland are just not used to that. They just don't have the history of that, and they don't have the readiness to, I feel like the coast of North Carolina, where my dad lives just a little bit inland, and I always worry about him. But, it's terrible when they get hurricanes and flooding and like destruction, but they're kind of used to it. They're kind of like, oh, well, here it is again, let's rebuild. But yeah, I'm thinking like a friend in Atlanta, I just vacuuming water out of their basement for just hours and hours and not being able to keep up. And I'm assuming it's that just nonstop. Yeah. Building supplies delivered. Oh my goodness. Oh, wow. I'll also buy the cups. Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. Delivering generators and emergency supplies. They should have, they should have a police escort, if anything, in my opinion. But, yeah. So I don't want to be too much of a bummer. Like I said, I there's anything, my friends and family need, I'm always there. And if there's any of the quilty cakes or the quilt nerds that have been affected and you guys know about it, let me know, because I'm just thinking like so many people have, their quilt making supplies and things like in basements and stuff. And, that's the quickest way to lose everything is with a flood. So keep your ears and eyes open. And if there's anyone that we can assist, we do our best. So, that said, I showed you my fun t-shirt. What I really want to show you, but I got to get my act together, is textile origin stories. Oh, that's nice. Water and supplies to North Carolina. Yeah. I just, Asheville, it's been a very long time since I've been there. I mean, it grew up as a college town, and I mean, there used to be nothing there. But yeah, I really hope those folks, get what they need quickly and are able to bounce back quickly. They will. It's just, it's hard when you're in the middle of a disaster. So, textile origin stories, you guys. I was so excited that this was the Virginia Folklife theme this year. So the way the folk festival works, there's a folk festival circuit, and I need to look this up a little bit more and get like kind of, because there's some pieces of it I'm not 100% sure, like how the festival circuit and Virginia Folklife, like how all that works. So Virginia Folklife, I know like the people there, they kind of do residencies, and they're considered like master quilter, master some type of instrument maker, master mandolin maker or whatever. And so like they're an entity and they're specific to Virginia, and all of the artists and people represented are Virginians. I think I mentioned sometimes they're people that have lived in Virginia, born and raised. And sometimes they're people that have come from other places and have, put roots down in Virginia and have something cultural that they do that, people are really interested in. Oh, a master luthier. Or luthier? I don't know. How do you pronounce that? That's interesting. I didn't know that word. Yeah, that's cool. People that make instruments, oh my gosh. I mean, I can't even play an instrument. I can't even imagine being able to make one. And some of these people do. They do amazing things. Anyway, the festival circuit, there's many, many like folk festivals, and world music festivals and things that some of these artists go to. And you've got, okay. So any type of stringed instrument. So I guess that would include fiddle, dulcimer, guitar, I guess. I don't know. It's a world I have a lot of respect for, but know nothing about. So the festival circuit has, there's dancers, there's singers and musicians. Druid, I have some clips for you. There was a wonderful bluegrass band we caught yesterday morning. My husband wanted to check them out. I'm used to like the really banjo heavy bluegrass. This was more of a mandolin heavy bluegrass, and the mandolin player was amazing. And they ended up doing a gospel song at one point. And, guys know I'm not religious, but there's something about gospel music that kind of like, it gives you like a little bit of a, it gives you the feels or something. But they did one gospel song, and the guy that played the mandolin had like the baritone. So when they harmonize, I mean, you guys know, you've probably heard, if you're not a churchgoer, surely you've heard some of this before out there in the culture. But yeah, just the sound of his voice resonating with the main guy of the band. He was the main name in the bluegrass band. And then there was a woman that sang with them, and she played guitar. The sweetest, most beautiful voice I have ever heard. I think they did one Carter family, so like June Carter Cash. They did one of the Carter family songs, I think. And then the main guy, his name is Junior Sisk. He let the band play without him. And then the woman, I think her name was Heather, she sang. So they were really incredible. And it's so fascinating to hear, the people do, like, talented people sing and play instruments and dance and things. And then we watched a world dance thing. Yes, the Carters. A dance thing, and that one was interesting because it was flamenco and a Italian dance. And the guy spoke wonderful English, but some of the things he was saying about Italy and this history, I couldn't quite get what he was saying, the Italian words he was saying, but I want to say he said like tarantella or tarantel, and that is like spider. And this dance that the woman did, this folk dance, it was very cool. Had I not known, I would have thought it was just any old dance. I mean, she did lots of things with the scarf and stuff. But they're from this area of Italy, like the heel of the boot, that part of Italy. And so they were very interesting. And then they had a Native American, I believe he was Crow from Montana, and I've seen him perform before. I cannot remember his name, but he raps. He is a Native American rapper, and he raps under the name Supaman, Supaman. Unfortunately, I did not get to see his rap performance. One of my friends did, so hopefully she got a clip or some pictures. But I have seen him dance before, and he was in full regalia, just absolutely amazing. And I got some clips of him dancing. So we have all that. And then we saw, this guy that kind of interesting. I don't know exactly what to call his. I'll have to, when I show you guys the clips, I'll have to read off the thing. Because it talked about, he's like Afrofuturist, funk. I don't know. It like one of those fusion genres. Elderly man, but like an amazing voice. I don't know that I necessarily cared for the music itself, because it was a little bit like that kind of improvisational kind of music. Some little beeps and bonks here and there. But his voice was just absolutely like amazing. Then we saw, or actually we didn't see because we sat in the back and the dance floor was like crazy full. These are different stages, by the way. We saw a go-go band that I'm familiar with. I've seen a number of times. And if you're not familiar with go-go, go-go is hey Tish. Go-go is a type of like kind of funk dance music that is started. Are you saying that cake doesn't jam? Back in the day, I may have gotten off and like, but nowadays I'm like, I just like to sit and listen to the music. But go-go, it came out of Washington, D.C. It is a very specific type of music, and I love it. It's a very cool music. It's got this incredible beat. And probably if you didn't know what it was, you might just think, oh, it's like funk, kind of funky music, but it's pretty cool. So I'll play you a clip of that, hopefully. Well, and here's saying, I hope all of my little video clips are okay, because I was really trying to watch and not watch through the camera. So I was taking like 20 and 30 second clips. And I'm trying to think, what else did we see? Oh, Bambino. The whole reason I went. My husband saw him twice because he was on multiple stages over the weekend. I only saw him on Friday night, but amazing as usual. And then what's interesting, I think I told you guys, he is from Niger, and he is a member of a nomadic people. They're Berber. They're kind of like, I guess, like an offshoot of the Berbers, which like the Berber rugs, the nomads. I think they're shepherd people. I'm not exactly sure what they shepherd. It's some kind of Saharan animal. But anyway, he did his performance, of course, and they always do kind of the little bit at the beginning when they introduce him and talk about his life, because his life he had a tough childhood. Because of war and strife there in Northern Africa, he moved multiple countries over a period of like very short period of time, and was in refugee camps. And this basically, he's like a 10-year-old kid in a refugee camp, and somebody left a guitar, and that's how he learned how to play guitar. So, like I said, his story is so amazing. But I'm in the textile area, and they have a very specific textile that comes from this area, or the people, the Tuareg. I think they have it spelled wrong on this poster. But anyway, long story short. Oh, so sheep and goats. Yeah, that makes sense. So I picked this up, and I've seen this online before, but I love the fact they had this as a little poster that you could take away. And what it shows is all of the different kinds of textiles that are coming out of Africa, and, you know, kind of a little bit of a visual of what they look like. So like Mali is very well known for indigo. You know, Nigeria is known for kente cloth, which you may have heard of. You've got areas that are really big with the waxed, the African wax prints, mostly West Africa. And then some of these other, you know, types of cloth that I had just never, you know, they looked familiar, but I had never heard of a specific name for them. And so this was so interesting. And I took a bunch of pictures of the signs that they had. They had really great signs. I also met a fellow quilter, and I talked to her at length, and she's such a sweet lady. I hope that at some point I believe she still works, so she has a, you know, day job, but I hope at some point she'll be able to drop by, and you know, maybe might get a chance to interview her. But anyway, like that's all that's all in the future. Another woman who was a doll maker, learned some interesting stuff from her, and I'll share all this on Thursday. And then there was a printmaker there who was doing the Adinkra symbols, printmaking. And I heard a lecture by an indigo dyer from Mali, which I have a very funny story about the interpreter, because he didn't speak English. He was, so in Mali, depending on what culture you belong to, he belongs, the man that was the indigo dyer belongs to it's like a country within a country is the way he described it. And, you know, because their culture is so very different than the rest of the people in Mali. But their language is French. One of their languages is French, but he speaks like 4 languages. There's French, because of colonization. And then there's his little country within a country, his community's language. And then there's like 2 other predominant languages in Mali. So he speaks all of them, but not English. So they had to have multiple interpreters, and it was funny. So I'll tell that story when we get to it on Thursday. But yes, I will have better things to show you on Thursday. Let's see. I'm trying to think what else. I think that's probably like the big stuff I wanted to mention. So teasers. But yeah, this was really fascinating. And if you want to do any reading ahead, but I'll get you all the info. The Alegba Folklore Society is the group that put together the Textile Origin Stories exhibit this year. And you know, in the past, I think one year I was there, like it was like a carnival kind of and dance and carnival sort of thing. And then other years it's been I want to say one year they focused specifically on the Appalachian regions of Virginia, and so it was all people that did Appalachian crafts. And I think I kind of described some of that the other day. So, yeah, that's the big stuff, and I can't wait to share it with you. Like I said, I learned some things that were so interesting, and I kept thinking like, oh, I wish there weren't all these other people here. All the other festival goers, like, they're in the way. You know, I just wanted to be like, okay, people, step aside so that I can talk to this artist. I could take pictures, better pictures, like you know. So anyway, the other people, they make it hard to, to really enjoy yourself. Let's see if there was anything else I wanted to mention. Oh, before I forget, tomorrow is quilt nerding. Jill and I, we wrapped up last week. We wrapped up Soft Covers for Hard Times by Mary Kay Waldvogel, and tomorrow is our interview with Mary Kay. It'll be at 7 p.m. tomorrow on the Quilt Nerding channel on YouTube. So I hope if you are available, you'll check it out. And we do have a giveaway. If you are in the Quilt Nerding Facebook group, I have it posted in there. And the giveaway will be a book plates with Mary Kay's signature and a dedication directly to the winner. So I think that'll be kind of cool. I know that's a prize I would love to win. So yes, Druid, it's the other people that make festivals so unenjoyable. I do have to say, honestly, there are some people sometimes that do not know how to behave at festivals. But I would say by and large, there is one year that at this festival that something not cool at all happened. And now I'm trying to think if it was actually the folk festival. I think it was actually this other festival they have down there. A member of the audience seriously injured an artist by throwing something at them. That is not cool. That was really, really awful. But other than that, I have to say, despite the crowds and all the people and just, you're packed in. Richmond is kind of an interesting city because I think that there's quite a lot of diversity there. And, I'm not saying that there isn't division, because there is everywhere. But I would say, you go to this festival and I love to people watch, as I'm sure you guys do. And, I'm just kind of looking around. I always think this when I'm down there. And maybe it's the folk festival and not so much Richmond. I'm not sure. But you look around and you've got young and old. You've got, lots of different races of people, lots of different cultures of people coming to view and visit, not just the artist. You've just got every kind of person. I mean, just think of every kind of stereotype: soccer mom, hipster, lady with a bunch of children, weird single guy, there's all these people. And of course, this is downtown Richmond, very close to two universities, University of Richmond and Virginia Commonwealth University, which is where I'm an alum, and big urban university. So lots of people from there will come down to festivals and things, and just every kind of person. It's just really interesting. I know a lot of times you go to festivals and it's, depending on what the music is, that people will, be like just a certain kind of people, the kind of people that like that kind of music. But when you get this broad, kind of event, it's just so many different kinds of people. Yeah. 15 years working the Scottish Festival. Yeah. Oh, Druid, I feel ya. I know. Yeah, it's one of those things, like, I could not do this regularly. I could not go to these kinds of things a lot. I've always tell my husband, as I've grown, and he loves music, he, when the bands that he loves to see or artists, when they're in town, he's always like, let's get tickets. And I'm like, okay, look, I could do so many of these a year. If we pack them all at the beginning of the year, I will not be going to anything at the end of the year. I can only do it, like, and it's the people. It's like being packed in. It's tough. If you're an introvert and you kind of lose energy that way, whereas people that are extroverts, they gain energy by being in those crowds. So yeah, it can be really exhausting. But QuiltCon, yeah, QuiltCon's a little bit different, I think. It is pretty crazy. I know you've seen the pictures. It's a little bit of a different jam, I think. Oh, I just saw Billy Strings had a new baby. Oh my goodness. And Ringo Starr lent Billy his jet. I wish somebody would lend me their jet. It means I could have gotten home in less than 3 hours. So, yeah, overall, even with the crowds and the, oh gosh, the blazing sun, And here's the thing. I'm kicking myself. I should know better. It should not matter what I think the weather's going to be. I should just always pack for every weather situation. Because I brought a raincoat and jeans. And what I should have had was the raincoat for one day, and for the next day, like, summer clothes. And I forgot sunscreen. And I forgot my very big broad hat and my transitions eyeglasses. So I'm out there, these glasses, no hat, and only sunscreen for my face, because I wear cosmetics for my face that at least I get the sunscreen. So anyway, but I feel like a kind of a jerk complaining about that, given that the weather was not kind to other people. Who packed my bags? Me. Seriously, I do these things. It's this particular island. I have many, many, many stories of being on that island when I was in college, never having sunscreen, never having, not bringing a water bottle, being passed out in the in the mud. Yeah, it does something to me. So, yeah, I think Ringo is a good guy. Yeah, I mean, it's nice to have a jet, but also it's nice to share your jet. All right, you guys, let's read some Sarah Josepha Hale. I love this lady so much. Where we left off was we learned some things about Queen Victoria and, about the Victorian era. So, I don't know. I'm going to stop venturing to guess what a chapter is going to be about, because I feel like I get surprised every chapter. The exception will be the Thanksgiving chapter, because that is exactly what you think it's going to be. It's about Thanksgiving. And I think I've read it before. I want to say, was it last year I read it? For Thanksgiving, I believe. So, in the run up to Thanksgiving. So, this chapter, as a reminder first, we are reading The Lady of Godey, Sarah Josepha Hale, by Ruth Fineley. And today's chapter is chapter 8, Homes for the Millions. Now, we know that she was all about many social programs which benefited women and children and the families of men in dangerous situations like seafarers. And we know she was all about education and medical stuff. So yeah, I can't wait to see what this is about. But I'm guessing Homes for the Millions has something to do with making sure people have a place to live. So, without further ado, The Lady of Godey, Chapter 8, Homes for the Millions. Victorianism made a fairly clean sweep of the Georgian attic. Good was thrown out with bad, charm with ugliness. Some people, like Mrs. Hale, tried to discriminate between the worthless and the worthy. In a measure, they succeeded. It is difficult to get away from such a fundamental as simplicity, an admirable characteristic of the Georgians that most Victorians lacked. The attempt to discriminate was strikingly true in the instance of architecture, for it was not until well after 1850 that betowered and beporched mansard Gothic monstrosities began to clutter up the classic American scene. I love that. There is a porched mansard Gothic monstrosity across the street from me, and it is actually, I would say it's got the mansard roof, but I would not call it Gothic. It's a Victorian house with a mansard and the widow's walk, and I think it's a beautiful house. So I do like some of the things. McMansions. Yes, the McMansions of the 19th century. In the mid-40s, there was a great impetus towards building. Everyone, broadly speaking, hoped to come into money. Don't we all? Godey's, ever alive to the ambitions of the people, began in 1846 the first Own Your Own Home campaign. Oh, this is interesting. This took the form of a new department, which was published for 30 years under the title Godey's Model Cottages. Interesting. Am I blipping, you guys? I see that I keep disconnecting from the chat, so I feel like I've been blipping. So I'm very sorry about that. Okay. It's all good. Well, I have my monitor back on to watch. Okay. So this is interesting that Godeys would want people to own their own homes. So this took the form of a new department, which was published for 30 years under the title Godey's Model Cottages. It was an innovation then. Now, a similar department is featured in all domestic periodicals. Also did not know that. I mean, again, it's 1930s that this book was written. So, I mean, I know about the Sears houses. I had a relative that had one of those in Washington, D.C. Okay. The idea appears to have been but roughly conceived at the start, the first offering, one trusts, having been intended as suggestive rather than practical. For certainly, good editorial judgment would not have seriously advised thatched roofs in this country or a cowshed next to the parlor. Yet that is just what the first Godey's architectural feature did. The cottage was called a Swiss-German model. How it struck the magazine's readers must be imagined. Today, its impression is that of an oversized cuckoo clock disconcertingly topped with a haystack. Oh my gosh, a cuckoo clock topped with a haystack. I'm guessing the haystack is supposed to be the thatched roof. But in extenuation of an American periodical's offering a plan for an economical village dwelling, with the parlor next to the cowshed, it should be pointed out that New England long before had developed a style of building, indigenous to itself, that attached a good deal more to the main structure than a mere bovine shelter. Snowbound for long months every winter, northern rural communities constructed their houses with a string of sheds or barns trailing out behind the kitchen. Doors connecting each unit with whatever preceded or followed ensured the owners being able to reach and care for all livestock even in the most inclement weather. But an undeviating rule was followed. The cattle were a long way from the house. That's good. You don't want the cow wandering in while you're trying to take a nap or cook dinner. First, next to the kitchen came the buttery, so called in New England, lined with wide shelves to hold flat crocks of milk waiting for the cream to raise. Then came the woodshed, full to bursting. Next, the workshop, where on winter days, laid-by repairs for the whole year were made. Adjoining the workshop usually was the tool shed, in which farm implements were kept together with the family conveyances. The granary followed, with bins for oats and corn, and not till then came the barns for horses, cows, sheep, pig, and fowl, with the big barn last of all, its heavy timbered mows stored with hay and straw and running over with stolen hens' nests, rustling mice, and litter on litter of half-wild, scampering kittens. Now that sounds just absolutely pastoral. I kind of doubt a whole lot of people had all that. It was in such an establishment that Sarah Hale spent her childhood. The New Hampshire farmhouse sat on top of East Mountain, thus had its string of barns made accessible. The scheme was known as a handy arrangement, and as no Yankee-bred woman ever yet sublimated her instinct for having things handy, perhaps that is why the lady editor failed to be critical of a European peasant cottage, suggesting in miniature a workable plan of her own youthful experience. However, this mistake was not repeated, and certainly it had no influence on the country's architecture. At least there are no extant evidences of it, where there are thousands of houses still standing that were inspired by later plans published in Godey's. By 1849, the model cottage department was firmly established. It swayed the fashion in homes just as surely as the colored embellishments dictated the styles in clothes. Even today, one speaks of a certain ornate type of dwelling as a lady's book house. Okay, so this is a term I've never heard, but I'm guessing in the 30s it was still a thing. Yet, while the book was never a consistent exponent of the similar forms of the neoclassic as introduced by Thomas Jefferson, not a 12-month passed without its printing plans representative in essentials of the chaste lines developed by the father of democracy. And here we have the type of residence, which came to be known in later years as a ladies' book house. And I will tell you this, with a few differences, this looks a lot like the house across the street from me. It does have a mansard roof, which is, if you don't know, it's like the roof that might be like in the central part of the house, and it's shaped like this. Like it curves, and then it's like got a little flat part across the top. So that's the only thing that I would say is different about this house from the one that's across the street from me. So this is what the ladies' book cottage. I'm gonna say that's probably a little more than a cottage. So ladies' book house. As far west as Missouri, Michigan, and Wisconsin, there is still to be found, especially on farms, many a house built as late as 1870, whose wide frieze beneath eaves turned back at each end to cap flat corner pilasters. I'm not sure. I can't remember how you pronounce that. Stamps it as an example of the Jeffersonian adaptation of the Greek. Such houses constitute the nearest thing there is to an American national architecture, skyscrapers excepted. And yet they are Victorian. Certainly so in as far as they were built in that architecturally inartistic era. Hailed now as an American farmhouse type, to quote today's renewed appreciation of them. You know, and I mean, I think that's what we would call them now, right? They're farmhouses. If they're out on property where there's a farm, obviously where I live, there's no more farms, and this is just kind of part of our little town. And yet they're Victorian, certainly so in as far as they were built in that architecturally inartistic era. Inartistic. Yeah, okay. Hailed now as American farmhouse type, to quote today's renewed appreciation of them, the beauty of their clean simplicity is being reproduced with considerable faithfulness in city, town, and suburb. They lived through the gimcrackery of Victorianism. She comes up with these terms, the gimcrackery of Victorianism, and still live because their sturdy roof trees and broad hearths, almost from the national beginnings, have meant to America home. They were an heirloom stored in the Georgian attic, the innate dignity of which even Victorianism could not invalidate. Godey's helped to preserve this design, popular belief to the contrary notwithstanding. Now that's interesting. That never would have occurred to me. And I guess, you know, because I have not like read very many Godeys. I mean, I've seen some Godeys magazines, but usually you're looking at stuff like this, you know. The fashions are what, you know, I'm generally familiar with. Yes, gimcrackery is a noun that means cheap, showy, and useless. Ornaments, trinkets, or trifles. Can refer to obvious or contrived effects, especially in art, music, or literature. Yeah. I knew that it meant like cheap. But by June 1851, the summer the Prince Consort was reveling in the triumphs of his Crystal Palace exposition in London, Godey's was featuring what is now regarded as the typical ladies' book house. So I'm guessing that's what we just looked at. Here is the openwork trim of wooden lace depending from the eaves. Here, the steep Gothic roofline, the bays and simulated leaded windows harkening back to Elizabethan days, the balcony-like porches, uselessly narrow and never to be occupied. So, yeah, if you can see here, there's this little balcony there. You could get close enough, you could see there's below this window there's this little balcony, and they're not, and I'm sure you've probably seen buildings with this in it today. It's kind of useless. And then you sometimes, like I said, the house across the street from me has the little widow's walk across the top. There is no purpose for it. You know, I mean, perhaps the widow's walk maybe has some purpose with the roof. You know, I guess the folklore of the term widow's walk was, you know, that these houses were near seafaring towns and the women were, you know, would walk up there and look for the ship to come in. I don't know if that's the way it really, if that's really how the story goes. I don't know. But those little narrow balconies, like, I don't know what that's for. I mean, I see people today that have them, you know, like might have hanging baskets and things on them, like, across that little railing. That's very pretty. But it is interesting when you look at this architecture. All those houses needed a place for the ghost to walk. Yeah. Hey, nun maker, how are you? Okay, pilaster. I think I've heard it pronounced both ways, and I wasn't sure what was right. Okay. Okay, so, my page turned. Okay. The first of the towered homes, now sincerely, the Victorians must have admired towers. Indeed. They loved an obelisk. Was shown in Godey's a year later. The one offered in November is a sad but accurate example of the Victorian propensity to combine ideas borrowed from whenever. Why this particular model is referred to as an Italian villa must remain a puzzle. It pictures too plain, more or less, with emphasis on the less, Jeffersonian farmhouses hitched together by means of a square tower. The tower looks a little Spanish, as if it might have been stolen from a California mission by some 49er. A Georgian portico and side verandas, the curved arches of the latter distinctly reminiscent of the covered runways leading from the mansion to the kitchens and offices at Mount Vernon, complete the heterogeneous whole. Well, it sounds like a mess, but I love the way she describes it. You can really tell when Ruth Fineley thinks something is stupid because she will describe it like that. The famous mansard roof must have become fashionable about 1860, which is probably about the time that house across the street from me was built. My house is 1853, I think, and it makes sense that one it's a little bit later. One of the earliest offered by Godey's appeared in the July issue for 1863. Being true to type, the structure suggested is imposing enough. But by 1869, even this style, new as it was, had lost its purity. Thenceforth, everything was combined. Mansard, tower, bay windows, Gothic arches, balconies, porticos, fretwork, and as a supreme compliment to the now dead, though thanks to the Queen's grief, powerfully dead, Prince Consort. Powerfully dead. Oh my gosh. The Prince Consort, who had been pleased to approve the deer that gracefully roamed English country estates, there were iron stags on the lawn. The edifice, shown in November of that year, was described as possessing a beautiful mansard roof of an elegant ogee form, in process of erection in Merchantville, New Jersey, to cost when finished $25,000. So that must have been a McMansion. I mean, these are the McMansions of the 19th century, I guess. I will say, although my house is very old, over 150 years now, I do not live in a McMansion. I live in what is called a working man's cottage, is what they called it. It is nothing like any of this. I have no porticos. I have no widow's walk. I have no mansard roof. Thus, the lady's book was forced to yield to so sweeping an influence. Even in those days, an editor would scarcely be expected to ignore his public. But for herself, Mrs. Hale had little liking for Victorian fussiness. The best style of dwelling is the old-fashioned house, she wrote in her book on Manners, or Happy Homes and Good Society. Oh, mansard roofs were supposed to be the French chateau look. Okay. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah. I'm trying to think. I feel like there's lots of like really big buildings. I want to say, gosh, it's one of the hotels. I don't think it's, I don't think it's the really famous hotel in Baltimore, but I feel like there's one of the hotels it's a big blocky, takes up half of the city block, but it does have that mansard roof situation going on. So, I mean, it was definitely super popular. One is reminded of the lovely room described in Northwood remember that Northwood was her pretty famous book, I believe. And of the exquisite fanlight over the front door of the home she shared with David Hale. These represented her taste, and to the old-fashioned house, she was loyal at heart to the end. Also called Second Empire style. Okay. And with Empire, I mean, are we talking about like Napoleonic Empire? Druid, so my whole street is on the historical registry. And, yeah, so my whole street is on the registry. My address, my specific home address is not. And there's a number of houses here, like on my side of the street, that they're the same structure as my house. And it's not. And the reason why, I'm pretty sure, is the early to mid 20th century changes they made. So my house has asbestos siding on top of cedar shake. And it has some internal stuff that's probably not that big in terms of like historical society stuff. But my whole street is recognized as like a historical street, because I think with the exception of this, there's houses kind of up the block, and then there's a couple of little like big lots that were split in half that have newer homes built on them. But for the most part, I think everything on my street is 1920 or earlier. So somebody in the 70s, I have the paperwork from the 70s. They did a whole national historical registry. And they specified like the whole street, but then they specified specific addresses, house numbers that had some kind of special, I guess we're actually registry. It only takes removing the lath for the cedar shake roof. Yeah. They don't mess around. And actually Maryland also has some stuff, Maryland historical, I don't know the details. My husband knows more about them. They're also like that. They're not interested in you unless you have like, you run the Underground Railroad or, something like really flashy and historically important. They don't care much about the dumpy little houses up in north of Baltimore. All right. So hand in hand with Godey's model cottage department went another called cottage furniture. Yeah, if you get registered, you can't change things. And actually, it's really interesting if there's things you can do that will like really mess with the situation that you almost don't have a whole lot of control over. There are some historical homes in Baltimore City where Baltimore Gas and Electric came and put like gas meters like right in front, like in the front of the house, and they had to update gas meters. Like our gas meters, like around the corner in the back. These were like on the front, and they were, I don't know, they were citing all kinds of stuff about safety. I don't know. But the people were like super pissed. And I think some of them, it might have been historical stuff that was an issue. What happens if you're disqualified? I guess, it probably depends, Druid, on whether you are the kind of person who would be upset if the homeowners association shook their finger at you. Or if you'd be like, let me bring in another pickup truck on cinder blocks from a front yard. I don't care about not being qualified. I love my house. It's old. It's a money pit. But it's not being recognized as an old house that matters to me. It's like that it's mine, It's like I've got history with this house. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I don't know what happens. Like if you end up on the registry, and then I don't know if they periodically check to make sure people haven't disqualified themselves. I don't know. It probably takes somebody complaining about you. And then that the National Historical Registry people come in and say, no, we're taking your plaque away. I honestly don't know how that stuff really works. So, all right. So cottage furniture, this is interesting. Cottage furniture. I remember, oh gosh, and I'm wondering if my mom has it. My grandmother's aunt had this interesting little like book that it was a book, like it was a big book, but it was blank pages, and she had pasted in all kinds of things like this, like cottage furniture type of, and I don't know if it would have been cut from Godey's or not. I mean, we're talking early 20th century, so they may not have had things like that. I don't know. Oh gosh, quilters, here they make you redo things if you change them. Yeah, I would not be surprised if that is what the stance they take here as well. Yeah. So anyway, my great great aunt had, I guess this was early when she got married, so it would have been like turn of the century, 1900 ish. She had cut out all of these, something out of some magazine. I don't know what it was, but she had cut out little pictures and arranged them and pasted them down in this book. As I guess what she was aspiring to, or what she, wanted to think about in the future for decorations. She's the one that owned the Sears house, the Sears Craftsman, kit house. So, oh, definitely zipped down the wallpaper. Oh my gosh, that's so weird. All right, so. Okay, the furniture sketches did not appear until 1849, though for some 15 years before window styles had been one of the magazine's pictorial features. Oh. So I'm guessing, this is the thing. I need to see if I can get my hand on some Godey's. I'm wondering, they're a historical item. They're not something you can just go pick up like an old quilter's newsletter magazine. But I'm wondering, there's got to be some place where they have some digitized that you could look at for free, some kind of database. Because I would really like to look at some of this stuff. We're kind of the way that she's described Godey's thus far. I always knew it as like the first women's fashion magazine, like, that they had stuff in Paris, and then Godey's was about, fashion in the US. But really it seems, it's like a women's magazine. It's the same kind of stuff we see in women's magazines today. There's some, well, I don't know. Actually, I don't read women's magazines today, so I don't know what's in them. I think some of them have gone out of business, but in general, women's magazines would talk about, furnishings and what trends are and things. So it makes sense that they did this then. But yeah, that's interesting. Like 1849, they had been showing window treatments for 15 years. That's interesting. Okay. For drapery of all kinds, especially the dressing of windows and tent beds, as the canopied four posters were referred to in the lady's book, tent beds, was one of the most important items of 19th century interior decoration. Some of Godey's drapery designs were lovely. Those published in 1849, perhaps as a final desperate protest against the oncoming gilt cornice and the heavy lace glass curtains that fashion was to bury under overdrapes loaded with tassels, gimp, and fringe, are worthy of present-day reproduction. They were called Greek draperies and were patently designed as accessories to the classic houses favored by Jefferson. Those used at double-hinged windows, now commonly known as French doors, reached, of course, to the floor, and are today particularly suggestive, as with the 20th century development of sunrooms, the old full-length Georgian windows leading to terrace or garden have come into use again. Oh yeah, love a French door. I don't have one. But they're very nice if you have a lovely garden to walk out onto. But if Godey's illustrations are to be trusted as reflecting the taste of the times, a rapid right-about face occurred between 1850 and 1855. Hey, Kate! Are you back home now? Yeah, Scarlett made it into a dress. Exactly. So 1850 to 1855, not only in domestic architecture, but in draperies and furniture as well. This seems to have been especially true of the last. In fact, the discrepancy between the cottage furniture shown in the 1849 sketches and that illustrated less than 5 years later is so wide as to appear little less than mysterious, especially so as no gradual transition has been depicted. The former is early Georgian, reminiscent even of Queen Anne, offering the roomy, solid style that obtained throughout the 18th century in farm and village homes. The latter, characteristically Victorian, is a hodgepodge of plagiarism. Now, this chapter is rife with things that Ruth Fineley looks down upon. Oh, offering the roomy, solid style that obtained throughout... I already read that part. Hodgepodge of plagiarism. Though not wholly ungainly, despite legs and arms borrowed from Louis Quinze. Oval backs suggestive of Adam, and the riotous carvings that in their turn were elaborations of Chippendale's more intricate tendencies. Right? Whether what is now called Victorian furniture broke suddenly on a giddy world, or whether Godey's, having in mind at first only the humbler homes, simply failed to note its prior use, one thing at least is certain: it possessed little that was original. Its every line can be traced to some former period. At that, as long as its making remained in the hands of individual craftsmen, the blended whole possessed a charm worthy now of reclamation. It was not until machinery, grinding at high speed in the 1870s, began to run wild in Eastlake and later in Golden Oak that the Victorian productions became unredeemable. Oh my goodness. Ruth does not like Victorianism, if that has not been made clear. As for the earlier sofas and chairs, strip them of somber haircloth, replace the coiled spring seats that rear up in the middle for all the world like old-fashioned chocolate drops. And graceful curves stand revealed in a quaint attraction. Incidentally, one of the best tricks in restoring chairs of this period for occasional use in modern rooms is to cut about 2 inches off their back legs. Or cut 1 inch off the back legs and add 1 inch in front by use of ball casters. Now, how is that going to work? That's like cutting the heels down on your shoes. Like, you're not going to walk normal. So how are you going to sit normal if your chair's pitched all weird? That's strange. I don't think you can't just cut the legs off of chairs, right? Like, that doesn't make sense to me. Okay. Either method ensures comfort by rectifying the original pitch that threw the sitter's body forward in a strained and uneasy posture. I still don't think that this is going to work. Now, if we remember, Ruth Fineley was also the one that told us you can cut a perfect star out of a piece of fabric by folding it 8 ways and just going. No, Ruth, you can't. It doesn't work. Otherwise, the only way of being sure of retaining one's seat in a Victorian chair is to plant both feet upon the floor and trust to Providence. It is said that countless were the 19th century spankings resulting from the irreverent juvenile amusement of sliding on the parlor furniture. Parlors were sacrosanct in those days, and a parlor suite was intended to serve a lifetime without evidence of the slightest wear. Now, that's funny, but true. I mean, I think so many people have, like, the sitting room. Like, you don't go in there. That's the formal furniture. You know, you don't wear shoes in there. You don't sit on it. You don't look at it. If we have people over, we all go in there, but we hover. We don't really sit. We only make it look like we're sitting. It was the rebellious young folk of the 90s, the immediate progenitors of today's self-reliant youth, that finally succeeded in opening those same parlors. Does this not sound like, I mean, we could say this today. If you just replace parlors with just opening up anything, big or small, you know, the rebellious young youth are the immediate progenitors of today's self-reliant youth. Yes. Yes. Doubtless, the restless Victorian borrowings that aimed to create and somehow did create A new style, by combining widely separated periods, were well underway prior to 1850. But if so, how explain pure 18th century styles in mid-19th century Godey's ladies' book? For they were there, right in the cottage furniture department. Something tells me she sawed the legs off of chairs. I don't know. Like, Ruth, that is not a thing that somebody just does on their own. Like, I think you really, like, a furniture maker could probably do that for you, like, to properly, change the pitch of a chair but you should not take a saw to your furniture. That's just not a good idea. It is possible, of course, that such pieces as the pewter dresser, sketched in January 1849, were revivals fostered by the lady editor to meet what she conceived to be a need arising from the pioneer situation. The pioneer situation. For the year the cottage furniture department was started, 1849, saw a sudden upward curve in the East's migration to the West. Well, of course, 49ers, gold rush, right? And apparently the original idea of the department was to furnish designs simple enough for reproduction by unskilled cabinet makers. We wish, Godey's had said, to convince our readers that they can, with the aid of the patterns we give, combine utility, beauty, and economy. The Chippendales, right? Well, up at auction, we have these beautiful Chippendales, but we can't start the price very high because they were formerly owned by Ruth Fineley, and she cut the legs off of them. The armchair, announced in 1850. Our book is sent to every state in the Union and to every territory. Though Mr. Godey's high sense of honor caused him to add that to one territory he sent only 6 copies. Wherever women went, there the ladies' book went also, following via the Pony Express in the wake of the Conestoga wagons with their strange loads of household gear, firearms, garden seeds, assorted tools, ancestral silver, and at least one setting of eggs. But in many a settlement that yesterday was back of beyond, there is to be found today great heavy pieces of old furniture that scarcely could have been carried thither in an overland wagon. For while many treasures did make the trip across the prairies and even over the Rockies into Oregon and California, the more massive pieces, such as 7-foot pewter dressers. Now I'm interested, like what she means by pewter, a pewter dresser. I mean, this is not a thing entirely made out of pewter, right? No, you can't make an entire piece of furniture out of pewter. I mean, pewter is for small things because it's so soft. So I'm wondering is pewter the color? Is pewter mean something? I don't know. Ceiling high secretary bookcases. Now those I love. My grandmother had some. My dad has them now. And every time I go to his house, I look at them. My mom also has a set. And I tell her frequently, like, you know what? You better watch it. I'm coming here. I'm going to throw away all your books and I'm going to take those bookcases. They're very nice. They have the little glass things that slide out and come over the front so your books don't get dusty. A pewter dresser. Okay, a china hutch. That makes sense. Where you put your pewter stuff. Okay. That definitely makes a lot of sense. Yeah. Ruth probably would have insisted on removing patina and original finishes on antiques. Yeah. Let's strip this down and put it back together. Yes, that does make sense. And what another name for something was like a china press. I think a china press is really just like a cabinet to hold your china. You guys, you're so smart. Okay, where did I leave off here? Okay, so the 7-foot pewter dressers, ceiling-high secretary bookcases, and great canopied four-posters, prized alike by the pioneers and their descendants, must have been constructed on the ground. Yes, Cake is getting thirsty. They are crude, too, more roughly finished than the same styles made in the East at least 100 years earlier. What imperfections of line is theirs that they all seem to share in common? The same imperfections that are to be found in the patterns supplied by Godey's. But the theory that the Godey's Ladies book sought to revive the Georgian styles is hardly satisfactory. A more plausible explanation is that Georgian furniture had never wholly gone out of use in humbler homes, that it could still be purchased, and that the magazine's new department at the start specialized in designs which, though they might have been considered old-fashioned in sophisticated circles, were still in manufacture. It will doubtless be sad news to more than one antique lover who has believed himself in possession of an early American piece of pumpkin pine or fruit wood. Pumpkin pine? I'm wondering, is that the color? She's got it, it's hyphenated, pumpkin hyphen pine, or fruit wood. Obviously, that's like cherry, right? To learn that the mid-18th century styles in chests, dressers, desks, chests of drawers, and cupboards were illustrated in Godey's as of current make as late as 1850. But not for long were the simplicities to survive. The title cottage furniture, though retained, became a misnomer, for Godey's soon reflected only the more elaborate of the articles shown in the shops of New York and Philadelphia, furniture impossible of reproduction by home craftsmen. Even so, the department loses none of its historical interest, as it definitely dates the various idiosyncrasies of Victorian furnishings, placing each new gadget in its period. Pumpkin pine is a type of eastern white pine that has developed a distinctive color and patina over time, giving it a warm amber glow. Okay. Interesting. Well, we've learned something else. That's interesting. I've never heard that term before, but I mean, eastern white pine, like around where I live, anything made of pine would probably be eastern white pine. I want to say they're the ones that, like at least here on the East Coast, they will plant acres and acres of these pine trees, and then they grow for like 20 years, and then they harvest them for paper. And I think those are eastern white pine. I could be wrong. But, yeah, that's so interesting. I've never heard pumpkin pine. Take whatnots, for instance. These elegant dust catchers were first mentioned by Godey's in February 1850s as étagères, from étage, a story or division. Now, the way she's spelling it is Itageres, and the E's have the little thing over them. It's a French word, obviously. I today have seen them called étagères with an E starting. And if you're trying to figure out what she's talking about here, they're little tiny narrow shelves that are really only good enough. I mean, they're frail shelves. They're not like, like those secretary bookshelves that could like really hold books. They're for knickknacks. They're not, or, plants. They're not for putting anything heavy on. So I frankly think they're kind of cool. And I was actually looking for one a while back. I found the perfect one, but I couldn't afford it, and it got sold. So anyway, oh yeah, smells like money. Yeah, those paper plants are nasty. Yeah, when I was little, that was always the joke. When you drive through like a paper town, be like, "Oh, did you poop your diaper? Oh, stinky, stinky." That's mean to do to kids. So this étagère, a storied or division. Thus, the magazine observes, the range of shelves has received its title. The book suggested they might be useful in a child's nursery. Clearly, the whatnot was new, not yet having found its proper use. Display of a dome of waxed flowers, a collection of shells, an assortment of stereoscopic views, and a pair of Bennington dogs. And I'm guessing Bennington dogs are probably those ceramic, like those ceramic animals. I'm guessing the dogs would be, I don't know if they would be like those, not spaniels, because I feel like that's another company that makes those, like Stratford or something. But yeah, I'm picturing like ceramic bookends or something. The same article that mentioned whatnots, it was headed New Furniture, described sofas and ordinary chairs covered with satin damask, velvet, or plush, their frames of rosewood, delicately carved. Now, those I'm picturing are those awful little pieces of furniture. Staffordshire, that's it, not Stratford, Staffordshire. Those little spindly couches that you see in antique stores, and they always will have a rope across them like, do not sit, because they're spindly little couches. This is what I'm picturing. Carved of rosewood. Beautiful. Beautiful, probably when they were new. One of the prettiest patterns, the article stated, represents clusters of large and small roses, every petal being distinct. The armchair has a richly embroidered covering of plain damask, the bouquets of which are lifelike in color and execution, rivaling the far-famed needlework of our grandmothers. Indeed, this kind of needlework is once more the fashion, and chair covers, embroidered in silk and worsteds, are constantly in the hands of upholsterers to be made up. Here is a definite statement of the revival of a long-discarded Georgian handcraft. Crewel embroidery was taken up by Victorian ladies in 1850. Cross-stitch came back too, some 10 years later, and every well-regulated family displayed a God Bless Our Home motto. I have one of those. The sentiment was Victorian, the embroidery Georgian. And so it is to be seen that, though ultimately all was grist to the mill, it took some little time for the Victorian melange of domestic arts and decorations to gain undisputed vogue. That triumph did not occur, really, not in the fullness of detail, until tentative sideburns, mustaches, and goatees had blossomed into whiskers. Though small clothes had been generally exchanged for trousers during the Madison administration, so I'm guessing small clothes mean like the knee breeches that men wore. So they were exchanged for trousers during the Madison administration. Jefferson was the first president to take oath of office in long pantaloons, an innovation considered undemocratic by his political enemies. Oh my gosh. That was undemocratic? Oh my. Oh my. Abraham Lincoln was the country's first hirsute president, and he indulged in little more than a fringe. The Lady's Book put up a battle for the Georgian smooth face, but in a pioneer land where the rank and file of men were under constant temptation to go unshaven, Godey's was foredoomed to defeat. Hair on the masculine face. Now it's interesting how she takes no time going straight from drapery and upholstery to a little bit about handcraft right into men's facial and hair. Hair on the masculine face had begun to be affected in the mid-30s. It was a fully decorated Dickens, still writing under his nom de plume of Boz, that toured America in 1842 and so helped set the fashion. One of the current names for a beard was Boslocks. Now, first of all, I had no idea that Dickens wrote under a nom de plume. I was never a fan of Dickens. I only read what I had to. In high school. I don't even think I read Dickens in college. So that's interesting. I mean, outside of like A Christmas Carol, I really don't have any memory of like a whole lot of Dickens stuff. So that's interesting. Did you guys heard of this? That he wrote under nom de plume, Boz, B-O-Z? Okay. Oh my gosh. But to the Lady's Book, a man who went unshaven was a whiskerando. I love that. A whiskerando. She has spelled this W-H-I-S-K-E-R-A-N-D-O. Like a whisker rando. Exactly. A whisker rando. Oh my gosh, this gets better. You guys thought the chinsult was good? Oh, this gets there. Mario Jim had a weird early American history. And it's those weirdo history teachers that know that stuff and they share it and they make history more interesting. I had no such American history teacher. My American history teacher was a senile, sweet old lady who never remembered my name, despite the fact I had her 2 separate years in high school. Okay, so an unshaven man would be called a whiskerando. One who sported a stiff little brush pasted under his nose was said to have caught the mustache rabies. Oh my gosh. Conundrums of the times, and they were very popular, dealt with the subject wildly. One that was considered excruciatingly witty was quoted hither and yon. That was quoted hither and yon was of Lady's book origin. Why are the wearers of mustaches and beards the most modest men in society? Because they are the least barefaced. What? That's considered excruciatingly witty? Okay. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, a mimeograph of original documents. Wow. So, mimeographs of original documents. That's actually pretty cool, but also mimeographs. Yes, you could smell them from the future. You had your, what was it? It was like purpley, right? And they were kind of, I don't know, they had that like wet chemical smell. And I feel like everybody always wanted to go run mimeographs off. Like if you were the kid chosen, like go run this off, and you'd come back, like you'd come like scurrying back to class, like going. That's probably what's wrong with Gen X and older. We sniffed the mimeographs too much. You guys, that huffing the dittos, exactly. That somebody should make that. They've made like old book cologne. They've made freshly cut grass. Why don't they have mimeograph? Has somebody made that? If nobody has made that, I'm calling it. I'm going to make that one day. I'm copywriting it. Trademark. Just a little dab of mimeograph behind the ears. Editorial protests insisted that whiskers were all an immense waste of bear's grease. Besides so effectually concealing the countenances of the wearers that young ladies are sometimes unable to distinguish their own brothers and cousins. Okay, ick. Quiltish, they have vodka. Okay, touche. But even so calamitous a social confusion was as nothing compared to the moral danger. Persons who carry their faces behind a mask of this sort, said Godey's, cannot be supposed to possess clear consciences, for honesty and fair dealing have no motives for any such concealment. What if it hurts to shave? I mean, what if you get the beard bumps? I mean, come on, be kind here, people. Godey's. That's so mean. This was serious, almost as serious as the ladies' books doubt if the more judicious portion of females would wed males so disguised. Even fiction was written with deliberate intent to serve as propaganda for the smooth face. A short story printed in the book for February 1851 entitled "Kissing with a Mustache is truly an osculatory masterpiece." But it was all to no avail. Gentlemen preferred whiskers. Mustache cups had arrived. Elegant OG roofs, whatnots, and Victorianism reigned. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so my husband wears a beard and a mustache. He, at one time, kept it like very, very tight. And for a while, he could not have a beard and mustache because of his position. They were quasi law enforcement. They wouldn't let them, have tattoos and beards and mustache and stuff. But they let that go. And he could not grow a beard fast enough because he has very sensitive skin, and he also has a little bit of a receding chin and so and a short neck, so the beard covers that up. It's not, it's not about being deceitful. It's just about, making the most of your features, and my husband is kind of foxy in a beard, I have to say. Well, that is that chapter. You did not know that when we talked about Homes for the Millions, we would have half a dozen insults about beards. Let's see. A drunk gal at the Irish festival thought hubby was from Duck Dynasty and insisted on a picture with him. That is hilarious. Should have charged. Oh my God. Was Ruth married? Yes, she was. Did you remember Emmett, her husband Emmett, when they, when they wrote Our Uninvited Guest? He was the one who was writing the stuff, while she got the downloads from Steven from the other side. Yeah. Yeah. See, we think a lot alike, If people are going to mistake him, take advantage. Get him if he doesn't already have one, get a camouflage hat or something. Like, lean into that. If my husband looked like somebody, I would definitely lean into that. Yeah. So, all right, you guys, I'm gonna wrap up early today. I think the next chapter might be too long to get started. But the next chapter might finally be about fashion, as I was hoping. It's called, so this chapter 9 is called From Crinoline to Bustle. So maybe we are going to get into the fashion stuff that I kept thinking we were going to get to. Yeah. So that will be the plan for Thursday, and I will have a presentation for you, so you can have the visuals of all the stuff I rapid fired at you about the folk festival. Mara, my husband is definitely on the Santa track. He right now still has just enough pepper in his salt and pepper that he's not quite Santa enough, but he's getting there. I have these wild visions of some type of Christmas-oriented business when he retires in a few years. We can make all of our side hustle during the holidays and then spend the rest of the year doing whatever. It's actually kind of funny, not to drag this out, because I did just say I'm going to end early, but there is a business in my hometown, and this might be something that they do all over the place, but I'd seen it in my hometown, and I thought it was the coolest thing. So obviously you could take your kid to the mall Santa, who may or may not have a real beard, and, get the crying kid picture. Or you can take them to this fancy photo studio, and Santa, and I think there's also a Mrs. Santa character that can be in there too. Santa will sit down and do stuff with the kids. Like, I think one thing they do is they do like a little Christmas craft. They like put together like a little thing and paint it. For older kids, like he'll play chess with them or play checkers with them, some kind of like, game sort of thing. And the photographer just takes pictures while they play and do whatever. And apparently, I've seen some of the pictures, not apparently. They are fantastic pictures. So it's the kind, I started thinking about it. And my husband being a photographer, I guess it's kind of hard for him to photograph and be Santa, but we could figure that out. But I kept thinking, like, this might really be a really brilliant thing, And of course, that was all pre-pandemic. I'm thinking of this stuff. But as he's getting closer to, retirement, I keep thinking, like, we have to leverage what we're good at. And being bearded is something he's very good at. Yeah, absolutely true. It is very cool. And I think that, just kind of preserving that magic of childhood, I think it's kind of neat. And it looked like the pictures were just really, really good. And, although there is something to be said for the screaming child with the mall Santa, I have my own picture. I think I was 2, sitting there on Santa's lap, just having an utter meltdown in my little pink snowsuit. So on that note, Yeah, I will leave you guys to it. I hope you have a fantastic week. If you are following along with Quilt Nerding and you were reading Soft Covers for Hard Times by Mary Kay Waldvogel, please join us tomorrow night for Mary Kay's interview. That will be at 7 p.m. on the Quilt Nerding channel on YouTube. And if I miss you there, I'll see you on Thursday. So have a great week, you guys, and thank you so much as always. You are the wind beneath my wings. Mwah! Mwah!